the interim report submitted to the Constitutional Assembly by the steering committee appointed by the Constitutional Assembly in regard to the framing of a new constitution of our country. This is a very important debate, sir, a historic debate. Our first constitution was the Salisbury Constitution enacted by the British, under which we obtained independence. The second constitution was the 1932 Constitution, the first Republican Constitution. The third constitution was the 1978 Constitution, the second Republican Constitution. These latter two constitutions were enacted by the party and the government in power and not on the basis of a consensus. The current process is based on a resolution of Parliament. Parliament has been converted into a Constitutional Assembly. There is a committee of the whole Parliament. There is a steering committee comprising of members of Parliament of all political parties. There have been 6 multi-party subcommittees appointed, which have submitted their reports. A team of experts have assisted the process. There have been public consultations and public representations have been received. All this is taking place. There is a marked difference between the procedures being adopted now and the procedures that prevailed when the 1972 and 78 constitutions were enacted. All this takes place almost 40 years after the enactment of the second Republican Constitution. And all these steps, I submit, sir, add to the credibility and the legitimacy of the process. After wide consultation and consensus, the Constitution will have to be enacted and adopted by a 2/3 majority of Parliament and approved by the people at a referendum. It will reflect the exercise of the sovereignty of the people, by the people, to the fullest degree. The supreme law of the land would have been made by the people and would command the respect and recognition of all the people. Its credibility and legitimacy shall be unassailable. All others, whether it be the President, the Prime Minister, the Parliament, the Judiciary, the provincial councils, the local government institutions, are only organs of government, custodians for the time being of the power of the people, exercising power on behalf of the people in terms of the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land enacted by the people. The sovereignty of the people would have been exercised so comprehensively that no question can be asked pertaining to the impairment of the sovereignty of the people. All the people would be involved. It's for the first time in the history of the country that such an exercise is being undertaken. The totality of the people being involved. The Constitution, the supreme law of the country, will be framed so as to ensure and guarantee an undivided and indivisible Sri Lanka belonging to all the people of Sri Lanka. The Constitution is being made to ensure that the country remains undivided and indivisible for all time, and that the country proceeds on a path of development and progress. The objective of the Constitution is to create a peaceful and prosperous Sri Lanka so as to achieve its fullest potential for the benefit of all the people in the country. The reasons for this occurrence are the lessons that we have learned in the past 70 years. We have seen the devastation and destruction the country has gone through during the war that lasted 30 years. Government resources were extensively expended in fighting the war. The country was starved of resources for economic development. Consequently, the people were unable to be the beneficiaries of their true entitlements. The country had realized that for it to survive and progress and maintain its status in the world, it needs to unite, to come together on the basis of equality and justice. Anyone attempting to disturb the process would do great harm to the country. Such people would be acting not in the national interest, but to advance their own personal political future on sectarian and narrow grounds. Sri Lanka is a multi-ethnic, multilingual, plural society. The proposals envisage that democracy and the franchise coexist in harmony without distortion, and that pluralism receives meaningful respect and recognition. Democracy and pluralism, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, are inextricably interlinked and must be so structured as to strengthen each other, so as to ensure justice and equality. This strengthens and consolidates an undivided and indivisible Sri Lanka. That is the foundation of the whole exercise. This is a prerequisite to sustainable peace, development and progress. Under the scheme of power sharing, there will be power exercised at 3 levels. 1, the national level. 2, the provincial level. 3, the local level. The subjects and functions assigned to the 3 levels would be unambiguously and clearly defined on a rational basis. Legislative and executive power shall be exercised in their respective spheres of competence at the different levels. This arrangement will prevail throughout the country. Constitutional provisions will ensure that devolved power is not undermined or taken back. If for any reason such a step becomes necessary, it can only be for very special reasons and in terms of specific constitutional provisions in that regard. This will ensure that the sharing of power is durable and also genuine. Such arrangements will be applicable throughout the country. This is to ensure, sir, that governance is in keeping with the tenets of democracy, that there is recognition of diversity in unity, that there will be easy access to governance, that governance will be transparent, that there will be ready accountability in governance, that there will be greater people's participation in governance, that governance is consequently more effective and expeditious, and that governance is also consequently less corrupt. There would be contentment and satisfaction amongst all people in all areas. This would contribute to unity in diversity and national cohesion and integration. The 13th Amendment served as the first step in power sharing through constitutional provision. The genesis of the 13th Amendment were extensive discussions between the government of Sri Lanka, headed by President J.R. Jayawardena, and the Tamil United Liberation Front, led by Mr. A. Amarthalingam, in July and August 1986. Our Prime Minister was a member of the government delegation. It was my privilege to be a member of the Tamil delegation. In fact, there are only two members of Parliament who are alive on the government side, Honorable Prime Minister and Mr. Ronnie DeMel, and there are only two persons alive on the Tamil side, myself and Mr. B. Anand Sangari. President J.R. Jayawardena tabled in Parliament the proposals of the government based on those discussions in February 1987. There is a belief in this country that the 13th Amendment was imposed on Sri Lanka after the Indo-Sri Lanka Agreement was signed in July 1987. I want to specifically state that President Jayawardena tabled the proposals outlining the 13th Amendment in Parliament in February 1987, and those proposals were based on discussions that took place between the government and the TULF in July and August 1986. The 13th Amendment was a significant beginning, but inadequate. It is recognized by all subsequent governments and subsequent presidents. President R. Premadasa, who succeeded President Jayawardena, President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, who assumed office after President Premadasa, and President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who succeeded President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga. During President Premadasa's time, there were the Mangalamuna Singh and Select Committee proposals. During President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga's time, there was the 2000 August constitutional bill tabled in Parliament with cabinet approval, without any dissent whatever, which cabinet also included former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and present President Maithripala Sirisena. During President Mahinda Rajapaksa's term, there was a remarkable and meaningful speech made by President Rajapaksa on 11th of July 2006 at the inaugural meeting of the APRC, the All-Party Representative Committee, and the Multi-Ethnic Experts Committee appointed by him. The majority report of the said Multi-Ethnic Experts Committee and the report of the APRC, headed by Professor Savithana, all of which under all three presidents and governments contained proposals for sharing power that went far beyond the 13th Amendment of the Constitution, and all of which were based on a substantial consensus between representatives of different political parties. They were all domestic and homegrown processes based upon a wealth of experience of local conditions. There were no slogans, but there was substance. It would be perhaps pertinent to clarify what exactly the position of President Rajapaksa was during these periods. I would like to quote from the speech made by President Rajapaksa when he addressed the APRC and the Multi-Ethnic Experts Committee on the 11th of July 2006. He addressed that committee under 3 subparagraphs. The first was unity, territorial integrity and sovereignty. And this is what President Rajapaksa said in the course of the address. The unity, territorial integrity and sovereignty of our country must be preserved. They cannot be open to bargain. Our approach has been widely endorsed by the international community. Notably, India and the co-chairs have clearly stated and have clearly ruled out any form of division of this country. Our objective must be to develop a just settlement within an undivided Sri Lanka. Those are the words of Mahinda Rajapaksa, the president at that time. He said, our objective must be to develop a just settlement within an undivided Sri Lanka. Each party represented here has its own solutions to the national question. We will discuss and synthesize these different approaches and develop our own Sri Lankan model. We must explore past attempts from the Bandaranaike-Chilvanagam Pact onwards. We must draw appropriate lessons from the experience of other countries. Those were the words of President Mahinda Rajapaksa, and that's precisely what we are trying to do now. He went on to say, I will not impose a solution on the country, but you will, through your developments, through your deliberations, provide a solution to the national question. The speech next deals with the points relating to devolution for the people, by the people. And this is what President Mahinda Rajapaksa said on that very important subject of devolution for the people, by the people. He said people in their own localities must take charge of their destiny and control their political, economic environment. Central decision-making that allocates disproportionate resources has been an issue for a considerable time. In addition, it is axiomatic that devolution also needs to address issues related to identity, as well as security and socio-economic development without over-reliance on the center in this regard. It is important to address this question of regional minorities. So he wanted the issues of identity, security, socio-economic development to be addressed, and for people to determine their destiny in the areas in which they lived, so that people would be in control of their own affairs. And this is precisely what we are presently engaged in doing. Then, finally, under the heading, some concluding thoughts. This is what President Mahinda Rajapaksa said on that date. Any solution must be seen as one that sets us to the maximum possible devolution. He wanted the maximum possible devolution granted without sacrificing the sovereignty of the country. He further said, given the background to the conflict, it therefore behoves, and particularly the majority community, to be proactive in striving for peace, and there must be a demonstration of a well-stretched hand of accommodation. He wanted the majority community to be proactive in striving for peace, and there must be a demonstration of a well-stretched hand of accommodation. Any solution must be seen as one that stretches to the maximum possible devolution. Those were President Mahinda Rajapaksa's words. Are we doing anything different now? Any solution must therefore address these expectations as well. The role of the APRC, as well as the panel of experts, is to fashion creative options and satisfy the minimum expectations that I have enumerated earlier, as well as provide a comprehensive approach to the resolution of the national question. So it is unfortunate that President Rajapaksa and members politically affiliated to him are today taking up a position which is diametrically opposite to what President Rajapaksa, in his capacity as president, told the APRC and the Experts Committee on 11th July 2006, shortly after he assumed the office of president. While I am on the question of President Rajapaksa, sir, it may also be relevant for me at this stage to quote what Professor G.L. Pires, in his capacity as foreign minister of this country, had to say in Oslo when he attended the Oslo conference, and to also refer to the Oslo communique to which he was a party. Responding to the leadership of the LTTE, the parties agreed to explore a solution founded on the principle of internal self-determination in areas of historical habitation of the Tamil-speaking people, based on a federal structure within a united Sri Lanka. The parties acknowledged that a solution had to be acceptable to all communities. Guided by this objective, the parties agreed to initiate discussions on substantive political issues, such as but not limited to power sharing within the center and the region, as well as within the center, geographical region, human rights protection, political and administrative mechanisms, public finance, and law and order. So there was an Oslo communique to which Professor G.L. Pires, in his capacity as foreign minister for the party, where they agreed to address a solution based upon the principle of internal self-determination under federal arrangement within a united country, acceptable to all the communities in the country. That's precisely what we are engaged in. And Professor Pires went on to address the press conference at the end of that Oslo meeting, when he said the meeting was from 2nd of December 2002 to 5th December 2002, and this is what Professor Pires said. LTT is no longer insisting on a separate state, but is looking at a different concept in earnest, and that is internal self-determination. And he went on to explain what that meant. This was power sharing, extensive power sharing, within the framework of one country. No question of secession, no question of separation, but power sharing within the framework of one country. These are the words of Professor G.L. Pires himself, in his capacity as foreign minister of this country, who stated that his government was prepared to find a solution on this basis. So I'm a little surprised that these gentlemen are taking up different positions. And I state these facts because I think it is necessary that for the country to know what President Mahinda Rajapaksa and his spokesman, the foreign minister, did while they were in power. The inability of leaders to stand by what they accept and keep their commitments after they cease to hold power has been a major setback in our country. The present process in constitution making under President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe is in a true sense a continuation of the process commenced by President Premadasa, continued during President Chandrika Bandaranayake's term, and also continued during President Mahinda Rajapaksa's term, for a period of more than 25 years, but not finally concluded in view of a lack of consensus between the two major political parties, which unfortunately were unable to work together on a national issue, and also on account of the fact that a very fierce war was in progress and was an impediment to resolution. These two impediments have now been overcome, and we now face the issue in a very different and much more conducive environment. It is more than 8 years since the war came to an end. But the causes for the commencement of the war have not yet been addressed. It would be a tragedy for the country if the conclusion of the war is not utilized to bring about genuine and permanent peace. All the above proposals during the tenure of the three presidents and the three presidents that I have referred to were put forward when the war was being fairly fought. It would be a tragedy not to realize that the war commenced due to non-resolution of the national question, and that the national question yet remains unresolved. This is an opportunity to frame a constitution on the basis of a national consensus between the different political parties and also amongst all the people of the country, irrespective of their ethnic or religious differences. And it would be to the country the extreme detriment if this opportunity was missed. Having referred, sir, to the statements of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and Foreign Minister G.L. Peiris to demonstrate how much their former statements while in office are fully supportive of the present constitution-making process, and also demonstrate how diametrically different and contradictory their current statements are. I want to refer to the actions of three outstanding leaders in this country who held the highest office in this country. The first was Prime Minister S.W.R.D. Bandaranaike. The second was Prime Minister Dudley Senanayake. Third was President J.R. Jayawardene. Prime Minister S.W.R.D. Bandaranaike signed a pact with the Tamil leader, Mr. S.K. Vijayaranagam, in 1957. This is what the pact stated. Regional areas should be defined in the bill by embodying them in the schedule here too. So the northern province to form one regional area, while the eastern province will be divided into two or more regional areas. Provision is to be made in the bill to enable 2 or more regions to amalgamate even beyond provincial limits, and for one region to divide itself subject to ratification by Parliament. Further provisions we made in the bill for 2 or more regions to collaborate for specific purposes of common interest. Next point in the agreement, sir, was in regard to colonization. It was agreed that in the matter of colonization schemes, the powers of the regional council shall include the power to select allottees to whom lands within the area of authority shall be alienated, and also power to select personnel to be employed for work on such schemes. That was the agreement between Prime Minister S.W. Bandaranaike and the Tamil leader, Mr. S.J.B. Chelvanayagam. Prime Minister Daddy Chelvanayaka signed a pact with the Tamil leader, Mr. Chelvanayagam, say in 1965, which largely dealt with the question of colonization, state land. And what he said under that agreement, in the case of colonization, district councils would see that landless people in the district get priority over others. Second preference would be Tamil-speaking people in the northern and eastern provinces in regard to land alienation in the northeast. Finally, even in considering deserving cases from outside of the northeast, Tamils would get priority over others. So there were 3 demarcations of priority: landless, Tamil-speaking people in the northeast, third being the Tamil people outside the northeast. The third agreement was signed by President J.R. Jayawardena with Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi in 1987. By that time, our issue had become internationalized as a result of our not resolving the issue ourselves. And this is what that agreement signed between President J.R. Jayawardena and Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi stated. One, desiring to preserve the unity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of Sri Lanka. That was sacrosanct. That was the first point in the agreement. 2, acknowledging that Sri Lanka is a multi-ethnic and a multilingual plural society consisting interiorly of Sinhalese, Tamils, Muslims, and Burghers. Recognizing that each ethnic group has a distinct cultural and linguistic identity which has to be carefully nurtured. 4, also recognizing that the northern and eastern provinces have been areas of historical habitation of the Sri Lankan Tamil-speaking people, who at all times hitherto lived together in this territory with other ethnic groups. 5, conscious of the necessity of strengthening the forces contributing to the unity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of Sri Lanka, and preserving its character as a multi-ethnic, multilingual, and multi-religious plural society in which all citizens can live in equality, safety, and harmony, and prosper and fulfill their aspirations. During the period which shall be considered an interim period, that is from the date of the election to the provincial councils, as specified in para 2.8, to the date of the referendum, as specified in para 2.3, the northern and eastern provinces as now constituted, will form one administrative unit, having one elected provincial council. Such unit will have one governor, one chief minister, and one board of ministers. This amalgamation of the North and the East, sir, lasted for 18 years, and there was budgetary provision made each year over a period of 18 years for a combined united Northeastern Provincial Council. And very unfortunately, there was a rather questionable judgment of the Supreme Court delivered in 2006, which stated that there was a procedural flaw, not anything substantial. There was a procedural flaw in regard to the manner of the merger, and the merger was done away with. These three national leaders I have referred to, sir, Mrs. W.R.D. Bandaranaike, Mrs. Dadison Naike, and Mrs. J.R. Jayawardene, were men of great stature, political giants. They were prepared to deal with issues that needed to be dealt with. They had the knowledge and the capacity in the country's interests to do what was required. The content of the agreements need to be examined when we frame our constitution, because they deal with issues such as land and the relevance of a Tamil linguistic identity in the Northeast, and the need for reasonable arrangements relating to these issues without harm being inflicted on others and within an undivided and indivisible Sri Lanka. It is well known, sir, that our national issue has become internationalized because of the blunders we have committed and because we have not been able to amicably resolve the national question ourselves. The country needs to know the extent to which this issue has been internationalized and the urgent need for it to be resolved. The process of making a new constitution that we are currently engaged in provides the way to achieve this objective. I propose to refer to some of the concerns that have been expressed internationally, but I will confine myself to a very restricted cross-section of these concerns, because I do not have the time to refer to all the concerns that will be expressed by all people. Our neighboring country, India, our large neighbor, can well be called our mother country. All of us came from there, have been involved and have been concerned for a long period of time. This is what the former Prime Minister of India, Mr. Manmohan Singh, Dr. Manmohan Singh, had to say in regard to our problem in Sri Lanka. You have a situation in Sri Lanka. The decimation of the LTT was something which is good, but the Tamil problem does not disappear with the defeat of the LTTE. The Tamil problem, Tamil population has legitimate grievances. They feel they are reduced to second-class citizens. And our emphasis has been to persuade the Sri Lankan government that we must move towards a new system of institutional reforms where the Tamil people will have a feeling that they are equal citizens of Sri Lanka and that they can lead a life of dignity and self-respect. This is what Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh had to say in regard to our situation in Sri Lanka. I would also like to refer, sir, to what the present Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, said when he addressed this Parliament in March 2015. He said, we all have to decide how our nation is going to be constituted. And he went on to say, when we accommodate the aspirations of all sections of our people, nation gets the strength of every individual. And when we empower states, districts and villages, we make our country stronger and stronger. Today, my top priority is to make the states in India stronger. I'm a firm believer in cooperative federalism. So we are devolving more power and more resources to the states, and we are making them formal partners in our national endeavor. Sri Lanka has lived through decades of tragic violence and conflict. You have successfully defeated extremist terrorism and brought the country to an end. You now stand at the moment of historic opportunity to win the hearts and heal the wounds across all sections of society. Recent elections in Sri Lanka have reflected the collective voice of the nation, the hope for change, reconciliation, and unity. Steps that you have taken represent, in recent times, are bold and admirable. They represent a new beginning. See what the Prime Minister of India, Modi, had to say. And then, sir, I would like to refer also to what the co-chairs of Sri Lanka, comprising of the USA, the European Union, Norway, and Japan, had to say. Sri Lanka must show that it is ready to make a dramatic political change to bring about a new system of governance which will enhance the rights of all Sri Lankans, including the Muslims. The international community will support such steps. Failure to take such steps will diminish international support. They went on to say, sir, the Tamil and Muslim people of Sri Lanka have justified and substantial grievances that have not been adequately addressed. I would also like to refer, sir, to what the Assistant Secretary of State for the US, Mr. Richard Boucher, had to say when he came to Sri Lanka some time ago in 2006. He said, we also think the government should provide a positive vision to Tamils and Muslims of a future Sri Lanka where their legitimate grievances are addressed and their security assured. President Rajapaksa has spoken of maximum devolution. Previous negotiations have agreed on internal self-determination within a federal framework. However, the idea is expressed. It could offer hope to many in the north and the east that they will have control over their own lives and destinies within a single nation of Sri Lanka. He went on to say, sir, although we reject the methods of the Tamil Tigers have used, there are legitimate issues that are raised by the Tamil community, and they have a very legitimate desire, as anybody would, to be able to control their own lives, to rule their own destinies, and to govern themselves in their homeland, in the areas they have traditionally inhabited. So the reason why I have quoted some of these important statements made by world leaders and very important countries is that we should realize that we are being watched by the whole world on account of certain things that are happening in this country. My mind goes to South Africa at one point of time, sir, and Burma, Myanmar also a little later, when the apartheid government in South Africa and the military government in Myanmar, Burma, thought that they could do what they liked and get away with it, and that they were not answerable to anyone. They soon realized that they were under such international pressure, particularly under such international financial pressure, that they had to cave in, and they had to accept the supremacy of democracy. What we ask is that democracy be regarded as supreme, and that institutions be structured in this country in such a way that the democratic wishes of all the people in this country will prevail and will give them self-respect and dignity. We are prepared to help you in that regard. We have been cooperating with the new government, with the present government in that regard, because we want international pressure to come to an end. We want the problem to be resolved domestically. But please remember that if you do not resolve the problem domestically, international pressure will only get worse and become more and more difficult in time to come. These statements made by different important international personalities at different times emphasize the imperative need for us to resolve our issue domestically. If we are able to enact a new constitution that has a broad, acceptable national consensus, we would bring this to an end. Our endeavor, sir, is to frame a new constitution on the basis of the maximum possible consensus. The ascertainment of the public view to the Public Representations Committee, the public representations received otherwise, the functioning of the steering committee, and the 6 subcommittees on a multi-party basis, and the assistance of experts have contributed to the emergence of a measure of consensus. Greater understanding and consensus is yet needed, yet needed in respect of some of the issues. This debate in the Constitutional Assembly is meant to promote that. The views of different members of the steering committee of different political parties have been set forth in the annexures to the main report of the steering committee. We of the Tamil National Alliance substantially represent the views of one of the main parties to the conflict, the Tamil people of the Northeast, who were the worst affected by the conflict. Tamil people of the Northeast have been absolutely clear in regard to the manner and mode of power sharing, particularly in the Northeast, during more than the past 6 years, quite definitely since 1956. They have advocated a federal arrangement within a united, undivided country, in a united Tamil-speaking northeastern region comprising of the northern and eastern provinces, both of which are predominantly Tamil-speaking, and all districts therein, in both of the north and the east, all of which are also predominantly Tamil-speaking. When the demand for separation was first raised by the federal party opposed it. I want to refer to the election manifesto, sir, of the Federal Party in 1970, which very categorically stated the following on the question of separation. In our written election manifesto, we stated this. It's our firm conviction that division of the country in any form would be beneficial neither to the country nor to the Tamil-speaking people. Hence, we appeal to the Tamil-speaking people not to heed, not to lend their support to any political movement that advocates the bifurcation of the country. See what the federal party said. Separation is not good for the country, it's not good for the Tamil people, and we want the people of this country to oppose any candidate who espoused the separatism. Professor Sundaralingam lost his deposit. Mr. Veena Ratnam in Kite lost his deposit. So we were never demanding separation. When proceedings commenced after the general elections in 1970 for the enactment of the 1972 Constitution, the federal party participated in the said proceedings and endeavored to evolve an acceptable solution within a united, undivided Sri Lanka. The failure to elicit a reasonable and balanced response from the government was the cause for the situation getting worse. All that happened after 1972 could have been averted if there was a reasonable and balanced response in 1972 to the proposals of the federal party. History has destined that the country and all of us are in the same position more than 4 decades and almost 5 decades later. To be quite exact, 45 years later. The Tamil National Alliance of the Democratic Party, representing the Tamil people of the Northeast, is committed to the democratic verdicts of the people delivered over the past 60 years. Of the Democratic Party, we are also committed to the evolution of a substantial, reasonable national consensus in regard to the evolution of a constitution, the supreme law of the country. This, we think, is necessary in the national interest and all its people, Sinhalese, Tamils, Muslims, and all others. While we respect the verdicts of our people, we realize that evolving a constitution for this country on the basis of the maximum national consensus would be in the interest of the country, in the interest of all the people of this country, whether they be Sinhalese, Tamils, or Muslims. And in that spirit, sir, we are willing to work towards a reasonable and acceptable consensus on all issues. We appeal to all, irrespective of party or other affiliations, to join in this national endeavor. Before I conclude, sir, I consider it necessary to refer to the spectre of violence which regrettably has had an impact on political developments in the country after independence. Violence was first unleashed against the Tamil people in 1956 and intermittently thereafter in 58, 61, 77, 83, and continuously since then. Violence was unleashed against the Tamil people whenever they made legitimate political demands. Violence was unleashed against the Tamil people long before the emergence of the LTTE. Over 1,500,000 Tamils have fled this country and live in different parts of the world, away from their own country, with their families divided. The country has lost valuable talent in consequence. Mr. Stabdiwadi Bandaranaike, Prime Minister, was compelled to tear up the Bandaranaike Children Pact in 1957. He did so much against his will. He was assassinated in 1959. a member of the clergy, was convicted of that crime. Yet another senior member of the clergy was convicted of conspiracy to commit that crime. Mr. Bandaranaike was a visionary leader. The Bandaranaike-Chelvanayakam Pact was a genuine beginning by him to resolve the national question. He was not allowed to do so. He was not allowed to do what he wished. The country's future would have been very different if he was able to implement what he wished. I have a genuine fear, sir, as indeed many others have, that if the national question is not amicably resolved early, there will be developments that will lead to further violence being unleashed against the Tamil people. More Tamil people would flee this country, and the Tamil people's voice, Tamil people's political voice would be silenced. I want to pose a question to my friends who oppose the new constitution-making process, whether this is the agenda and that you oppose a political solution only for this reason. It cannot be disputed that the emergence of the LTT was long after violence began to be unleashed against the Tamil people. Such violence and the failure of successive governments to keep their commitments were the primary causes for the emergence of the LTTE. You were able to win the support of all the important countries in the world to defeat the LTTE. You had India's support, you had the support of the US, support of UK, Canada, Australia, European Union. Every country in the world supported you. LTTE was banned in all those countries. You made out to the world that the LTTE was an impediment to political resolution. You assured the world that there would be an acceptable resolution of the national question after the defeat of the LTTE. You have to ask yourselves whether you can abandon the said assurances and commitments that you made to the world. I can specifically refer to all those commitments, but I do not have the time, sir. Sri Lanka knows very well that all the problems Sri Lanka has faced in the international arena, particularly since 2012, have been on account of your failure to meaningfully address the national question. Things can only get worse. Things cannot get any better if the same situation continues. As a Sri Lankan, I have the right to ask everyone to be truthful to the country and to all our people. It would be a mistake to think that everyone can be deceived all the time. No one wants anything done behind the backs of the Sri Lankan people. Let us enact a constitution addressing the critical issues and seek the approval of the people at a referendum. It is they who must make the final decision in the exercise of their sovereignty. I thank you, sir.